What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. Make sure you go to coinmastery.com/invest. Get your free PDF all about dollar cost averaging, how to make better decisions with cryptocurrency. You get a full free email series. Quite a time to be in crypto. If you're just getting into it, welcome. If you've been around for a while, this is exciting times. I think the month of December is shaping up to be one for the books as usual. Today what we're going to talk about is what's going on a little bit with Bitcoin as it relates on the macro bigger picture, what I'm looking at as it relates to Bitcoin, a few notes about altcoins, and then a couple of big pieces of news that I believe are noteworthy and may help you guys as you try to make sense of what's going on in the greater picture. Right? The goal of these videos is always to help you make better decisions and to really capitalize on what I consider to be the biggest financial revolution and opportunity ever. Bitcoin has just been seemingly unstoppable. It's really been incredible to watch this thing. I mean, every time that there's been any sort of pullback, right? Last week we had a little bit, and then over the weekend, if I go to the, let's say 4 hour maybe, you can see that this big red candle right here. This came out when the UK discussed, what do you call it? Making owning crypto like basically illegal, right? If you conceal your crypto ownership, there was a drop of a couple 100 points, and it came back. I mean, in a matter of hours, it came back. So, and it was only a rumor; it wasn't full out news, but it's becoming very clear that there are very few things left that are really going to overtake the demand curve at this point, short of just complete irrational exuberance, which I think we need to get to a very, very high number before that happens. So I was watching this, and I think the big thing that I'm taking away from Bitcoin right now is I'm less concerned about the price right now. What I'm really concerned is, when does the demand stop? Because when you look at any bubble in history, whether it be financial bubble, whether it be a real estate bubble, whether it be an oil bubble, anything, what causes the bubble to pop is not necessarily bad news. What causes the bubble to pop is that the demand dries up. And that could actually happen when people just get complacent. When people say, look, this is going to be around forever. I don't need to worry. I don't need to rush into it. This is just a new thing. And often that is when things will start to slow down. And so as I look at these Bitcoin charts, I'm starting to look at this price, and I'm less concerned about some big event happening. And what I'm more concerned about is how many messages are coming through each day about, hey, I want to get into Bitcoin, or how many fund managers or institutional investors are still really interested in it, right? I'm looking at the demand, the ongoing demand, because that is going to continue to drive the price up no matter what the news is. Because there's really not a lot of things left that can get people to say, oh no, I'm never gonna be in Bitcoin. You know, that's dumb, because the price will keep going up and it'll keep becoming more and more attractive. So for anyone out there, as you're doing, making your judgment calls on when to get into Bitcoin or any of the bigger coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, but Bitcoin for the most part, that's a really important lens to look at. And that's the reason why I think the two biggest and most effective strategies in crypto right now are dollar cost averaging and buying the dips. When you look at those two, I think if people who have been in crypto for a while are focused on when the next dip is going to happen, and people that are just getting in are focusing on dollar cost averaging because they're getting into it. And I think I would encourage anyone, this is something that I've started doing, maybe a dip is going to come. I mean, it has to come at some point, but while you're like the dip may come, but it's gonna be harder and harder than we think to nail it, and it may not go as deep as we think. And I'll get to that in a second. So dollar cost averaging may be the most effective thing you could be doing, and maybe you just get more aggressive about how you do that. Maybe you buy every 3 days instead of every week. Maybe you buy more instead of buying your kind of 12-month strategy. It's all personal decisions. But like the demand is just crazy. It's just out of control right now. And I don't know what's going to stop the demand. I think one thing that I saw that was a really potentially a light bulb moment is I'm on Bitstamp, not because I'm for no other reason than they just have more history on TradingView. When you scroll out, when you zoom out and you look at this is a log chart of Bitstamp. You can see the price kind of doing not really a parabolic, but the beginnings of a very, very large logarithmic jump. Now, if you take this over here and I switch the log off, this is the chart that most people see, right? I'm going to move myself over here, where it's just like, big, huge run up, 2013, big kind of nuclear winter for 2 years. Now a second huge run up. And I think a lot of people compare this to equities markets, to commodities markets, to traditional markets that are based on earnings and market value and all that. And I'm not saying Bitcoin is exempt from that, but somebody looked at this and they said, what would you think about if this was actually an adoption curve and not a true market, price curve? How would that change the way that you looked at this? That in reality, it's just a matter of how many people own, hold, or even use Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is reflected in this curve. Would you still think that there's going to be some huge crash? I don't know. I think that the data, in my opinion, is pointing not necessarily to some huge crash-driven event. It's pointing to more of a series of these small events and then just a loss of interest in Bitcoin itself and maybe moving into other cryptos. And it ends up being more of a flatlined established price. The same thing happened to gold. But that's just a new way of looking at this, that it's all about the demand. It's everything in these markets, everything with Bitcoin. It all comes down to how many people are buying it, how many new people are coming in, how much more money they're putting into it. That's everything. That is the thing to be thinking about. The other big, factor that I'm looking at is Bitcoin's dominance. Because I think over the next 6 months, what we're going to start to see is a lot of exchanges open up fiat to altcoin pairings. And I mentioned this briefly last week on a live stream, but I think that as you see exchanges doing that, right? So you can go into Coinbase, for example, and with US dollars, you could buy any altcoin. You could buy whatever, like Digibyte or Stratus or Hempcoin. I mean, any of these, right? I'm not saying that those are the ones, and it removes the need to buy Bitcoin first, so you can go buy altcoins. That is going to be, in my opinion, one of the biggest determinants for equalizing out the price of Bitcoin. Once that starts happening, we will start to see Bitcoin's curve start to flatten out and maybe even drop down to a price that is relatively flat. So keep an eye on this chart as well, the dominance. How much of the market does Bitcoin own? Because it will not own this much forever. The only reason it owns this much right now is because it's the only game in town that's big enough. It's the only game in town you can use to really go buy altcoins, or the only sizable game that has liquidity. Ethereum isn't really in the same ballpark as that. So that's just an indirect way to look at demand. Speaking of demand, I think the altcoin market we are getting into really a second coming of what we saw earlier this spring. It's obviously not on the same level of, being able to refresh your browser and, double your money type of thing. But we're seeing some huge, huge spikes. And I think the reason why we see this comes down to a combination of macro and micro, where there's an overarching demand for Bitcoin in general, which we're seeing on this chart. But what we're also seeing is conferences like this, right? So some people that I talk to are at the Blockchain World Conference. This is just an example. There's hundreds of these kind of conferences. This one's in Bangkok. And hey, what's going on? I chatted with them. And they said, it's just there's so much demand. There's so many people that came in and they wanted to hear about ICOs, or they heard about new information or the new things that are happening in crypto. And what happens is that people realize that there's more to this than just Bitcoin. That's when they start to look at altcoins. That's what you're seeing over here. So for you guys, as you're watching this, as you are seeing these huge spikes happening in the altcoin market, realize that it's people that are just getting into crypto, and that the pool of people that are doing that is what, 8 to 10 times bigger, as Coinbase said. 10 times bigger than it was in the spring, but the same sort of idea is happening. People buy some Bitcoin or Ethereum. They realize that there's this whole other world of 1,300 other altcoins that are companies that they could potentially get returns on. And so you see these new spikes. So for anyone out there, if you do want to play that game where you go and you see which one's going to go nuts, that's up to you. That's a hard game to win. At least that's a game I'm not very good at winning, so I'm not going to play that game. But if you do want to win that, you got to get into like Reddit. You got to get into chat rooms. You got to start looking around. You got to start hitting people up, going to meetups, and finding out what people are talking about online, in private groups, anywhere. That's what's going to drive these prices more than anything, because it's going to influence the attendees at these conferences, or who are reading blogs, or who are watching Bloomberg or whatever. And they're going to see this. They're going to see the returns. They're going to jump in just like we all did in May. And it's just going to be, it's hard to gauge, and you can roll the dice, but that's what's going on. And so that's why last about week or so, I haven't really been paying attention to a lot of the price movements on altcoins, because this is a social experiment more than an economic one at this point. And so it's a lot more useful for you guys to study the people that are making up these markets, to study the demand curve, than it is to try to back out, why is voxels going nuts? Well, there's a million reasons why, but the real reason why is because a big group of people decided that they all wanted to buy it at once, and it just caught like wildfire, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's just how it is. So altcoins are going to be interesting. Like I said, I'm not very good at this game at trying to gauge it all. So I'm going to stick to the ones that I've been looking at, and the good products, the good marketing teams, the good businesses will get their shot. And if you own a lot of it, you'll make a lot and you'll keep a lot. Very important. Other interesting news is CBOE, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, options exchange, right? The CME is the largest commodities exchange. The CBOE is the largest options exchange. They are releasing futures on December 10th, which is next Sunday, I guess. So keep an eye on that. The CME is going to release them on the 18th, a week later, give or take. So we're going to watch this. Everyone's wondering, is it going to go up, down? What's going to happen? Nobody knows. And the second question is, well, if they can't own Bitcoin, how is futures price going to affect? How is it going to make it go down if they can't actually sell it? And the reason is because they can drive massive fear and self-fulfilling prophecies into the market. If you see $300 million betting that Bitcoin is going to be at $7,000 in a month, that often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Lots of ways to manipulate the market. This has happened on every single mature commodities market and futures market ever, is that the tail wags the dog. That's the reason why, is the way you can manipulate the narrative, because futures markets go super bearish on it. All the media goes super bearish on it. A lot of people start selling. That's just how it works. Will that happen? I don't know. I think that time will tell, but this is something to keep an eye on. Other interesting piece of news that seemingly seems dumb, right? This on Ethereum, they created a store, which you can see is called CryptoKitties, which is it's like digital assets. So imagine you can own this the same way you could own a baseball card, like a rare baseball card. This is an example of this being done on the blockchain. And on the one hand, you look at this. So just for anyone listening on the podcast, this is a TechCrunch article. It says people spent over $1 million buying virtual cats on the Ethereum blockchain. Now, if you are 95%, I should say 75% of the non-crypto people who are looking at Bitcoin but not really into it, you look at this and all you can think about is bubble, bubble, bubble. This is insane. I can't wait for this to explode. All right. I look at this, and what I think that this does is reinforces one of the details of crypto that often gets overlooked, and that is the scarcity of crypto. It is the fact that there are only certain number of coins, and there are only certain supplies of certain cryptocurrencies. And that is a very important piece of the overall story of crypto. I think that that is actually one of the most powerful details of Bitcoin, is the fact that there are only 21 million of them. And a big piece of the demand curve is people just saying, I just want to own some before they're all gone, or before it's too expensive to own any, or whatever it may be. I think that's a huge piece of what drives the buying decision and the holding decision as well. And I think that this CryptoKitties, in my opinion, it reinforces that idea of, you know what, I just want to own a little bit just in case. I don't want to be left behind, because I know that scarcity, just like gold, as the demand increases, is the ultimate hedge. It is like timing is so important, as seen in crypto. I mean, it's true in really anything. So while CryptoKitties themselves, this use case and the transaction volume and everything it's doing in the Ethereum blockchain, I'm not sure that it's all sustainable or even viable. But I do think that this idea of scarcity-driven buying behavior is a huge, huge piece of the puzzle. And as we expand the cryptocurrency model, as governments come in, as banks come in, as new private chain coins come in, as new forks come in, these scarce models where there's only a certain supply of something, it can be anything, become really interesting. So you guys, as buyers in crypto, I would really encourage you to look into your portfolio, assuming you own more than just Bitcoin, and look at which are fixed supply, which are not fixed supply, which do you know that you own a particular piece, you own a certain percentage of that entire supply, and other coins that you don't own an entire percentage of that supply. And I would encourage you to, at the very least, go through CoinMarketCap. If you don't know how to do this, go through CoinMarketCap, and you can, let me just click through here. You can go through these and you can find it. So if you go on something like Zcash, you'll see that there is not a fixed supply, because there would be a total supply thing. Let me see if I can find one versus on, like, let me go back here, pull up, just go straight to Bitcoin, I guess. It's going to say max supply is 21 million. I mean, this is the most there can ever be. I would encourage everybody to find coins, both big and small, that have a fixed supply. This trend is a big deal. This CryptoKitties thing, I do not know if this is a big deal, but the psychology, that is a huge thing. There's a small detail that is going to have big implications for crypto, for the price of crypto, for everything over the next 5 years. Do yourself a favor. Go do some research, find ones with fixed supply, and buy a little bit. Okay? Last piece of news. Venezuela deciding to launch an oil-backed cryptocurrency called the petro something. Was it? I guess it's just called the petro. If you don't know, Venezuela is going through an unbelievably terrible and sad crisis of corruption and currency inflation. And so they are issuing a cryptocurrency and saying this is getting backed by their biggest commodity, fixed commodity, which is oil and gas, their biggest export. That's what drives most of their economy. And I haven't gotten into the weeds on this. I've read enough articles about it, and I know enough about what's going on in Venezuela, where they owe a lot of debt. They have a very corrupt government. And I think that they're issuing a cryptocurrency, and a lot of people are going to get lost in what's really going on. Like, they are not creating something that is a decentralized money for the people. They are creating a new form of currency that will allow them to maybe start over. It's kind of like if they created their own tether. The fact that it's backed by a commodity that they own, while the commodity does have a market price somewhere else, it doesn't mean that they can't manipulate the currency. They can't buy up as much as they want. They can't, inflate it however they want to inflate it. Like, all of a sudden they find all this new oil that they magically didn't have last year. Now the supply is half when the government buys up all the petros or whatever. So while the currency may have more transparency, the real use cases of it are the corruption is still possible, because there's not clear how people can buy it. It's almost like the government's doing a huge pre-mine, and then they control so much of what's getting back behind the cryptocurrency. And the reason why this is important is because we as people who know what the heck is going on in crypto, we need to educate people on the internet. We need to educate our friends, our family members, anybody getting in about this. Not necessarily with Venezuela, but the governments and the banks are going to make their own crypto soon. They're already making them. The credit cards are making them. Banks, everybody's making their own private chain crypto. And they're trying to use the word cryptocurrency to legitimize it and to get people to trust it. And you have to educate people on how these cryptocurrencies work. And if you don't know how these exactly work, that's fine. I'll link up one of the Bitcoin core developers. He's got a great site. His name is Jameson Lopp. He's got a resources list. I'll link it below. You should go check it out. Learn about how blockchains work. Learn about money supplies. Because if we just allow this to happen, we're going to get back into the exact same situation we're already in. I mean, I tweeted about, Janet Yellen, who chairman of Federal Reserve, she's stepping down in the USA. And she said one of her parting words, like, the $20 trillion deficit should keep people up at night. I mean, that does keep me up at night. I'm terrified of that, right? And this is the kind of thing where governments are going to tell you, hey, it's all good because we're doing cryptocurrency. If you don't know, if you don't have the knowledge, you got it. The knowledge is the key, right? Education leads to change. It gives you the power. So I'm just doing this as awareness. I'm doing this to make sure that everybody is staying on top of this. This is not just a headline. This is an important social implication that we gotta stay ahead of it. Gotta stay smart. So it goes. All right. So this week I'm watching the demand curve more than anything. I'm watching how these altcoins just continue to pop. Doing my best not to chase it. I will re-examine my dollar cost averaging and probably get a little bit more aggressive on it. Overall, I think that I think the next 4 weeks, starting with this week, it's just going to be wild. And obviously 2018 is going to be unbelievable. So very exciting stuff. Hope you all have a great Monday, and I will talk to you soon. Peace out.